I think we have our guest joining us here. Favian, thanks for joining us. I'm
Hey
Ryan. This
guys.
is Sam here. We were just chatting a little ball about CONCACAF Champions Cup, but thanks for joining us tonight.
No, thank you for having me on. It's a true honor to be on. I mean, I've been seeing your guys' content everywhere. I mean, TikTok and short form is like the new thing. So you guys are killing it over there. So I'm happy to be on.
Appreciate you joining. For everyone listening to us tonight, we had kind of highlighted earlier in the episode, you are a journalist. You have a big kind of base with Kickbase USA that you kind of joined, it looked like back in December. Tell our listeners and our fans here kind of about your beginnings and where you're at now.
Yeah, look, so a couple of years ago, I started off as a podcaster for the San Jose Earthquakes on the show called Tectonic Takes. I started off as a fan, right? And then I got invited to a press conference for the Earthquakes. And then my writing career kind of took off from there. I was in a very lucky kind of situation where the home team reporters really only covered the Earthquakes. They didn't really care too much about the away team. So honestly, what I kind of figured out for my content and my articles is why don't I just interview guys like Lucho Acosta one on one? Why don't I just interview guys like Henny Mukhtar one on one? Because there's nobody here, and then I'm able to go ahead and satisfy the market, or at least the community with details of how these superstars around the league are playing, right? So one that really rings really close to home for me and for you guys is I was able to announce Evander's number change when he was at Portland, and that was something that I got to do with interviewing him one on one in Coachella Valley. As you guys know, that's going on right now. But yeah, all these opportunities I took to kind of maybe put my head in a market that I'm not too used to, or to supply that market with new news is something I never took for granted, and that kind of made me jump in terms of kind of like national media. And then when Messi came to town, there wasn't too many bilingual kind of reporters, so I was able to kind of jump in and translate him maybe a little differently than the official press release, right? So it's all down to interpretation. But yeah, I mean that's kind of another place. And then also, since I grew up a soccer fan, and a lot of my friends weren't soccer fans, I always had this mantra of teaching people why this was important. And I kind of did that when Messi came along. I put a list of all your favorite athletes in the United States, and I said, hey, Messi dwarfs everybody's Instagram follower count combined. This is like the biggest offseason transfer move. But yeah, that's kind of how I got my beginnings. And then I wrote for the Athletic and the New York Times for Uruguay and the World Cup draw, and I'm hoping to keep my partnership with them as a journalist. And then I'm here with Kickbase now.
That's awesome. I mean, really started, just covering the local team, and now you're at a national, almost like world level, right? Which is really cool. In only how many years?
Yeah, honestly, it's the fourth year now for me. So
that's pretty solid, especially like when you've been grinding, right? As hard as I'm sure, like Ryan and I have seen, the stuff you put out. So you're obviously working hard, and people recognize that. It's really cool to kind of see like where you started, right? And then go ahead.
Are you still a San Jose fan with everything that's going on, man?
I'm not allowed to be a fan necessarily. Okay. But also working in the industry and kind of being a reporter, you kind of see how the sausage is made. So it's almost like, you might have certain kind of ideas. Now, when I interviewed Chris Wondolowski, I was a little starstruck because I grew up as a fan when I was a kid, and then having season tickets when I was older and things like that. But besides that, it's almost, since the teams are different from when I was growing up, it's a little easier for me now to kind of say, okay, well, this isn't the Earthquakes team that I loved, right? That's the Goonies from 2012 and everything like that. And then this is kind of like my career and my job now. So, of course, I mean, it's always nice to, okay, I'll take this back. Let me say this. When I was coming up, I was really covering a lot of MLS Next Pro. And seeing guys go from MLS Next Pro to MLS that I covered is one of my favorite things. A guy that really made that jump was Max Arfston. So I've really been able to interview him multiple times throughout his career now. And seeing him jump from MLS Next Pro to MLS is something I love seeing, because a lot of these guys it's so weird, man. They're like, yeah, man, I've been following you for years. Like, I love your content. I'm like, bro, you're the content now. Like you're the player, like
You're
I'm
like
nobody.
you gave
Yeah.
me a job like that.
Right. So it's just funny to see like a guy like Bo LaRue. I interviewed him last year. He's a standout player for the Earthquakes, young player, great player. And he was like, bro, I've been following you for years. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? You just scored the Cali Classico. Get out of here. Like I'm nobody, so it's just interesting. But I love seeing that. And that's one of my favorite things. Chance Cowell is another guy who I know very, very closely. He made the trade to RSL now, and hopefully he gets some more minutes over there. But I would say I'm not necessarily a fan of the team too much, but I love seeing young players succeed. And if I can do anything to kind of, put a spotlight on young players or help them in their career, that always makes me feel a little bit better too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something Ryan and I have tried to, do through our podcast as well. I feel like not a lot of the other FC Cincinnati podcasts touch on the academy or MLS Next Pro enough, right?
Yeah.
And I think it helps to educate people like, hey, like this could be somebody you see in the next, 2 to 3 years, and you just don't know the quality that they're showing off right now.
Yeah, look, I'm a big believer in MLS Next Pro and even USL. Like I love the lower leagues and the US Open Cup for that matter of the states because it's the beauty of the sport in a way. Have you guys ever been to like a minor league baseball game? It's that feeling, right? Like who knows, this guy could be something, but at the end of the day, if they don't become something, at least you have a connection or a contact that's in the industry or doing something else too. Because a lot of guys don't forget, you trying to amplify them and things like that.
Yeah, no, good shout. As Sam and I were talking about the MLS season, we're pumped, obviously, to have the season finally start. What big headlines would you like to kind of point at and headline? We'll get maybe globally or US based. Obviously, with the World Cup going on, we can touch on that, separately. And then maybe for FC Cincinnati as well.
Yeah, look, let's start with FC Cincinnati. I mean, let's talk FC Cincinnati.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I love this team, and let me tell you why. Okay. I don't know a single MLS team that says, don't even look at our stars. They're ours, okay? I don't know a single MLS team that has the balls, excuse my language, like FC Cincinnati, okay? And when it comes to Denki and Evander. Now, Tom Bogert came out and said, maybe those rumors aren't totally true. But even if they weren't true, the stance is the same, right? So we're not selling these guys. It's the beginning of the season. We're going for the Sports Shield. And this is something that I love to see from teams in MLS. To me, this is kind of like a changing of the guard of MLS teams. And Cincinnati's kind of leading the charge in that, where fans love stars. Americans love stars. They went to go, honestly, save a star from MLS and grabbing Evander. And then, and now they're not selling too early on these guys. And now Cincinnati fans can go to the stadium, rock their Evander jersey and Denki jersey with pride, and really believe that this team is gonna lift some, silverware. So no, I'm excited. You guys have something great going over there in Cincinnati. I haven't been to a game yet. I want to really bad. But yeah, man, you guys have killer defense. The new guys that came in should do some damage too. And then of course Evander and Denki, I think they're just gonna pick up right where they left off.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of add to that, obviously it's hard for a fan and a true supporter to see that kind of interest, in those big players. But yeah, like you said, to be able to maintain them, because I think, around the league, I think everyone would kind of be like, well, that's a huge number. How do I not?
40 million for any player in MLS.
Right.
Would be insane. Even Son, it would be insane.
And so that's what I think is crazy with what's going on with Denis Bouanga right now, too. It's kind of like a similar type thing. And I know LA is kind of battling back and forth with that, but to start your season, you want to have your guys. And this team is rolling out a lot of the same from the year before. From our standpoint, we're saying, hey, is that a good thing or not? We were that close to a supporter shield last year, but there's still some cracks that we're seeing, with the defense potentially and things like that. So I think that's kind of where our head is at, and it's interesting from, more of a U.S. perspective and even from your perspective. Hey, being able to retain that's a good thing for this team and what that looks like moving forward.
Yeah, look, a lot of teams are really kind of like always picking up the pieces. Like maybe not the best teams in MLS, but I'm just kind of thinking like Austin, like they might get rid of Uzuni, they got rid of Bukhari, and they're basically starting brand new again, right? In MLS, having consistency and continuity is so underrated. And Cincinnati's been able to do it all the time. And it's something that, you get past the wooden spoon seasons and the rough start. But man, Cincinnati with Noonan now is like a contender every single year. And this would be the year, in my opinion, that would possibly, kind of really compete for a supporter shield. Because I do think Miami is going to kind of take it slow at the beginning of the season. I think they understand that they could win playoff games. And I think they're going to really go for CONCACAF Champions Cup. But if Cincinnati can really pile up the points right now, and Evander and Denke, I mean, luckily and not luckily, they're not really in the World Cup conversation. This is their World Cup. So this could be a moment where they kind of get a lead, just like kind of Philly did last year, and then not look behind, So
Yeah.
I think this is if I'm a Cincy fan, and I am circling for the win, to be honest.
No, yeah, I think ultimately, like, what you're looking for from an FC Cincinnati fan, we've seen it, on Twitter, like, just people talking about it, is if we don't get a supporter shield, we don't get an MLS Cup, we don't succeed in Leagues Cup and get, silverware, right? You could see Pat Noonan possibly exit just because we haven't seen the return on the investments, right? From a trophy winning standpoint. As far as like the Evander Denke like turnover that you see in the MLS, right? We got extremely lucky last year with bagging Evander, right? Right. You saw the Lucho drama within FC Cincinnati that happened in January, a month before Champions Cup, and Evander shows up to Champions Cup and just immediately dominates, right? So like we got lucky on that from that standpoint to like retain, like you said, him in the MLS. But I want to touch on real quick, if you don't mind shifting from FC Cincinnati for a second. Another big name joining the MLS and James Rodríguez, this past week. Like in your mind, like what does this mean for the MLS, even if it is just short term with, a potential for a long term?
Yeah, look, I mean, I love this move, even if it's short term, and maybe this is like a business kind of thing for me, like I'm kind of like, it's good for business. Let's just let it fly, No, but 100%, it's a TAM deal. It's 6 months. Minnesota really does need something to look forward to, and this is like a perfect thing, After losing St. Clair, Ludd, and really having no identity because your coach kind of goes to Europe and you have a new guy come in, what better than signing an international superstar that's going to fill out your stadium every week in and week out, right? Like, I honestly, even if, this is going to be a crazy thing, but even if he doesn't live up to what people think of him, to me, it's still a win. I mean, you don't lose anything. I mean, you're going to sell jerseys. I hate to say it that way, but you're going to sell jerseys. You're going to sell tickets. Even if he, gives you in 6 months, let's say 6 goals and 8 assists, that's a win in my book. I mean, you got some production out of a guy that maybe, hasn't done so well in his last clubs, and you gave your team hope. I think that's the biggest thing with James Rodríguez going to Minnesota, is that this team now is going into the season with hope. I mean, after losing a guy like St. Clair that's been there from the start, losing Ludd, maybe one of the most underrated players in this league, and you're going into the season with hope that, hey, we're going to ball out in the Western Conference, at least for these first 6 months, and then we'll see how we do after. And for Minnesota to land a guy like that is insane.
Like, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I know what the initial reports were like. Wasn't Orlando City in on him? Like
Orlando, Austin,
Miami.
Like
that was a surprise that none of those, like those two teams are a little bit more have a little bit more of a Latin-based crowd, right?
Yeah,
would have loved to have a Colombian star, before the World Cup. I would have assumed, right?
Yeah, look, I think more reports are going to come out, but to me, this is kind of like, who had the discovery rights? Was it Minnesota? And they just like said, let's just shoot our shot. Let's just shoot our shot. It's like, let me send a DM to a girl way out of my league and let's see if it lands. And it does. And then all of a sudden, everybody thinks you're the funniest guy in the world. No, but this is so crazy to me because I haven't seen any like. Minnesota sends 50K in GAM over to, so it looks like they might have his discovery rights, and it looks like maybe this is a situation where he was like, you know what, if they want me, they have my rights, let's just do it,
let's play ball.
Yeah, exactly. and it's more like, it's interesting because you would think a guy like that. I mean, he's already played in Madrid. He's playing in Bayern. Like he's already played at the heights of soccer. Maybe New York isn't that appealing to him. I don't know. I think it would be. Like. But then again, maybe a guy like James being outside of that bubble or outside of the bigger cities maybe helps him get more focus for a World Cup. So that's something to keep in mind because again, it's always national team first for James, and that's the 100% truth. But in terms of what you're getting and possibly getting in this deal, I think 100% this is a home run. And it almost is like a new, in my opinion, this is like a new era of MLS where you're getting these international superstars coming to MLS, going to different teams. I know this one hurts, guys, but Thomas Mueller going to Vancouver is so baffling, to me. But that one seems like he just liked the city of Vancouver and said, "I'm going to play ball here. I'm going to pay more taxes, but that's cool." I have all the money in the world already. No, and then Marco Royce going to play in LA as a TAM player. That they're like, "Hey, we want you here, but we don't want to pay you that money." And then to me, this is kind of like, wow, like this is a way that MLS is changing right in front of our eyes. And in the words of Andrew Wiebe, teams are getting creative. All right, and I think this is showing that. No, but I love it. I love Wiebe. I love that Minnesota United post that they said we got creative.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny too.
That was pretty funny. Do you think that on the same token, that Timo Werner going to San Jose was along the same lines of like you're talking about, big stars like that going to places you wouldn't maybe always expect?
Yeah, like Timo Werner going to San Jose is just as shocking too. But I mean, the level of James is completely different, especially to Latinos. It's like. It's really he's in the top five. Like, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, and maybe James is in there, right? Like in terms of global superstar and face and recognition power. Timo Werner is so weird for the Quakes that like he said Bruce Arena came to Leipzig and brought PowerPoints and showed him where San Jose was, and that was kind of interesting because he was just out and about like. Oh, I've had friends that have been to San Francisco and it's close, and I saw that San Jose is close and that it could be the Mallorca of the United States. And I was like, this is kind of wild that he's being this honest, but hey, whatever it does,
whatever gets him here.
Right. Exactly. Whatever it takes, it works. And no, I mean, it's San Jose's biggest signing since George Best back in 76 when it was the NASL days and they were all trying to bring behemoths in. Like San Jose's never signed a European player like of his pedigree. So San Jose Earthquakes fans are really heartbroken because of Espinoza and Chicho Arango and everything, like basically the whole offense. But at least they have a little bit of hope with Timo Werner and the boys playing. All right, it's Timo Werner and the boys out there.
Yeah, it seems like that. I mean, from the Western Conference now to the Eastern Conference, like we've seen the last several years, it's been very dominant on that side. Obviously, Inter Miami, winning MLS Cup last year. Any kind of bold predictions that you think maybe for Eastern Conference wise or MLS in general?
Let me give you a bold prediction here for the MLS entirely. Here we go. I don't think Lionel Messi is going back to back in MVP. Okay. I think we're going to see Lionel Messi kind of slow down a little bit before the World Cup. If you take a look at his Copa America numbers, he was playing at an unreal kind of pace and was really getting 4 assists every clip, But he wasn't playing that many games or possibly not getting as many minutes because he wanted to stay healthy for the World Cup. Sometimes they were saying it was a knock. Maybe he didn't want to risk it, right? Or it was Copa America, excuse me. And he didn't want to risk it. I think we're going to see that same kind of, regimen for Leo Messi this season. So you got guys like Son in the league that are going to just tear up the league. And I think I ran his numbers last year. And if he played a full 30 games, or excuse me, a full, let's say, slate of games, he would have gotten 30 goals. Very similar kind of year to what Carlos Vela had when he had that career, really MLS record-breaking year. So I'm going to say I think Son is going to win the MVP this year. I think Messi's going to maybe take some games off here and there to get ready for the World Cup, and I think that's a place where Son can kind of excel, especially if Bouanga stays and he has his, co-captain with him, because there was a moment where those guys were like 13 goals out of the 15 goals. The last 4 games were them, and it was just like unreal level of play with those two guys. And I think this team may be better now. If I'm not mistaken, they have a DP slot open, and who knows? What if they bring in a Griezmann, and it just even opens up the place even more for Son, So it's interesting. It's going to be a crazy ride, but I think Son might have the edge on Messi in this year, because Messi may have the World Cup in mind.
Do you think Evander has a shot? I know he's been in the runnings the last couple of years, but we got to talk about our Cincy guy.
Yeah, look, Evander is and always will be an MVP candidate. I mean, he balls out, and I love the way he plays. He always has that one quote where it's like, I would be MVP if Messi wasn't in this league.
Right.
And now he might have to deal with, I would be MVP if Son wasn't in this league, And I think he could have since he really hits the ground running and they get a crazy amount of points and they win the Supporter Shield, who knows? Maybe it's more of like a merit thing where, Evander helped Cincy truly run away with the Supporter Shield. Maybe he's like 3 or 4 goal contributions less, but it was really evident that he was the MVP of the year. I could see Evander kind of, pulling away with an MVP. And he's always in the race, and he's always somewhere in there. Now, it's tough to win MVP in MLS because players get to vote. So that's a big deal when name recognition kind of is really appealing to a lot of players. Maybe they feel like they're on the same level as Evander. So maybe he loses some votes there, because if it's like you're voting for a guy like Messi, or if you're voting for a guy like Son, you're always like, oh, they're legendary players. It's an easier vote instead of, a guy that you can possibly beat on a Wednesday night in Colorado, right? So my thing is, the players voting is always kind of iffy for me, to be honest. And that's why, in my opinion, I mean, Messi did deserve, the MVPs, but he wins at a landslide. And it's not even close, because he has I want to say like 80% of the player vote, which is wild.
Yeah, I think you saw that effect. Even like a name like Anders Dreyer, like he had a phenomenal first season with San Diego last season, and maybe it's because once again he's out west, right? So it's later games, people don't see it as much, but you go with the stat sheet, you go, oh my gosh, this dude almost had as much goal comps as Messi as well, right? So he was up there, and I feel like him and Evander are kind of in the same level where it's like, hey, they easily could be MVP. However, like you said, they're overshadowed by these other big names that the player might have a bigger player vote.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but clicks and views matter too, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to MVP voting, because maybe there's some reporters out there. Like, I live on the East Coast now, and I 100% did not watch that San Diego CONCACAF match that ended at 1 a.m. for us. And I was we
were just talking about that. Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even know they were playing. I was in bed already before they started, right? Like, this is kind of wild to me. So with that in mind too, I do believe the East Coast bias. I hate to say it. Yeah. They talked about this all the time in other sports, and now that I'm, witnessing it, 100% I believe it.
Yeah.
But I think, Evander could have a chance if they win some silverware and they kind of really ball out.
Yeah. I wanted to real quickly touch on, so MLS ranked top in the world, actually, in spending this window. Any thoughts to that? And maybe it's tied to the World Cup coming up as well.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to me, honestly. Do you know who said they ranked it just in Transfermarkt, or?
Yeah, it was Transfermarkt, and then there were like ESPN had a couple of articles that they came out with that had
fourth.
Yeah,
MLS was fourth.
MLS was like third or fourth. Obviously, depending on the source, but top 5 right in the world. Which you go back, you go, this is our main transfer window. But at the same time, like Ryan said, a lot of squads are trying to get their players in before the World Cup.
Yeah, I'm trying to see what kind of big transfer that wasn't a free transfer came in. Like a fat transfer, like Latte Loth was last year, right? Almiron was last year. I'm trying to think what's a Denki was last year,
Right.
right? Oh, Betarame, I guess for
Yeah.
18 million. That's a big one.
Maybe they think DePaul as well, just being official now.
Okay.
I don't know if they
Okay.
consider that,
Yeah,
being
no, that would
transferred in, but
count, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
That is interesting, but you are paying a premium for these players because it's before the World Cup, right? You're kind of banking on these players being okay with leaving for, let's quote, air quote, subpar league before they hit the World Cup stage, because a lot of coaches in the national teams, they don't really value MLS. Like I've seen it personally with Marcelo Bielsa with Uruguay. I mean, outright say that MLS is a lazy league. So the stigma is still, it's lower than Europe. So I assume MLS teams are paying a little bit of a premium right now because teams are in the middle of their season. Plus, it's more or less like, okay, the World Cup season year, or it's a World Cup year. So maybe you're paying a little bit of a bump because teams are kind of like gun shy because maybe that player pops off. Maybe that player scores a crazy goal against England, and then all of a sudden their price doubles. Yeah. Maybe you have to pay a bit of a premium right now to get this guy in the squad. But then on the salary side, you're definitely paying this player a little bit more because it's before a World Cup, and they're kind of taking a hit on their national team chances.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that that news came out after the January window.
Yeah.
You never know where the MLS is going to land, and Ryan and I like to say like these random like rankings, right?
Yeah.
The random rankings come out, you're like, oh, I guess this is cool, right? Like I don't know.
But how much of that spending is the Colorado Rapids? That's the real question here. Like, what about? I guess the Earthquake spent. I guess we don't know how much they spent on Timo Werner yet.
True.
And no, my biggest thing is not the spending. It's the spending of the spending overall, at least. It's the spending of the teams that are at the lower side of the table. Let's make a little floor so everybody has to kind of spend, because I love parity. I think that's what really makes
you really haven't like seen a whole bunch of it. Maybe the past 3 or 4 years in the MLS, it's kind of been the same squads for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. Some teams are out. You're trimming the fat, really, right? You're starting to see teams with great organizations, great head coaches, kind of really over years, like Pat Noonan, for example. If Columbus can do it, with the new coach, then maybe their organization is good. Seattle is one that's like,
Seattle's
iron, like iron giant out there in the West. Vancouver's becoming something out of nowhere. It's exciting to see where this league is going, and you're starting to see some teams become powerhouses. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's exciting. We're very excited about the 2026 season. Fabian, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Let everyone know where they can follow you and see all your work.
Yeah, look, Kickbase is having a huge announcement tomorrow. It was supposed to be today, so I was going to kind of say it, but I can't. Please go over and see what we're doing tomorrow, because if you're an FC Cincinnati fan or an MLS fan, you're going to be excited for this one. I'm personally very excited. I wouldn't have taken a job out in New York, literally during the same time as the Super Bowl in my home, if I didn't believe in it. So it's going to be a great time. We're going to make some crazy content out here, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this MLS season.
Awesome, man. If you're ever, wanting to come to FC Cincinnati match, let Sam or I know.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you and to see TQL rocking, maybe for MLS Cup down the road too. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. Thanks again for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening tonight. We'll see you guys next time.